Okay, so we're going to jump right back into chapter 23, section 3. We're talking about imperialism, U.S. taking over other countries. I'm going to pause it. So we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to focus on Asia. And what we're going to start with is a quote by in 1900, Albert J. Beveridge was a historian and a U.S. senator, and he was posing this to Congress and to the President of the United States, and he said, "The Philippines are now ours forever." We talked about this from the Spanish-American War, and here the Philippines are, right here, I circled it for you, and he said, just beyond the Philippines are China's unlimited markets. So he's saying in China, there are limitless markets, and we cannot retreat, we cannot leave either one. And the power that rules the Pacific is the power that rules the world. So here is the Pacific, and he's basically saying whoever holds the Pacific in their hands, all right, basically holds the world in their hands. And I put this interesting picture of McDonald's in front of this very Asian-looking building. But that's where we are right now. So we're going to first start by focusing on specifically Japan. So the question is, if you look at the Pacific, right, and you look at the Philippine Islands, we just talked about this. We want to get access into China. We want to get access into Japan. We want to get access into all of these Asian markets, okay? And what's interesting about this is, historically, a lot of these Asian markets have been closed societies. Take, for example, Japan. Japan was a closed society. I'll go back a slide. Japan was an island, okay? They were removed from most of Asia, right? They're completely surrounded by water, and they were very isolated for a very, very long time. Well, the United States of America wanted to open up trade relations with China. So they sent a guy by the name of Commodore Matthew Perry over to trade. Perry went there, kind of said, let's trade. He left. He kind of comes back with warships. In fact, let me show you a little video I made to show you pretty much how this went down. It's kind of funny. I think you will enjoy this. So let me see this.
Aaron, Harold.
Oh, let me restart that. Sorry about that, folks. Here we go.
Using Powtoon.
Okay, so that was a little video I put together. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That's basically the way it went. These Japanese saw these battleships that the U.S. came back with, and they basically called them like black ships of death. They've never seen a battleship before, and again, they call them black because of the black smoke that was coming out of these ships, obviously the steam engines, and they had never seen a steam engine before because, again, they were a very closed society. What's interesting is on one of those trips we left, we brought an actual miniature model of a train as our token to say, look at how civilized and developed we are. Don't you want to trade with us? So that's how the story went, and this was back in the 1850s. So in the 1850s, we kind of were able to open up Japan to trade. Unlike China, for example. China was a very closed society all the way into the 1900s, and this is an interesting graph. Here you see the United States. This is kind of like the economy, and here we are, expanding westward, right? We have westward expansion. So we are growing as a country. We're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And now we're starting to, what's that called? Industrial revolution is happening, right? And now we kind of have imperialism going on. So you can see how this is making us stronger as we go. Now, take Japan, right? In about 1850, right around here, 1853, 54, this is where Commodore Perry went to Japan and said, yeah, you're trading with us now. And notice, if you watch the economy, that they started opening up their doors and started trading. They're going up and up and up, and then around World War II, Japan's really flying. All right, now look at China. China's in red. China, like Japan, economy wasn't that great. and it stayed low. Look at China in red. Low, 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 low. And again, look at Japan, how Japan opened up earlier, so they were able to benefit from that. China did not. They were a very closed society for a very long time, and then China eventually started to pick up. And in fact, if we look at today, China over the last 10 years has gone haywire. And you can see this from 1960 to 2010, right? How Japan was kind of leading the pack, but like I said, the past decade or so, look at how much Japan is growing. You know, China, everything's made in China now. So you can see how that's changed today. But while we're on the topic of China, I just want to quickly talk about one more thing, spheres of influence. Spheres of influence are an important term you must know. And basically, spheres of influence are when foreign countries basically claim economic rights in other countries. So let's take China, for example. Here is a pizza pie, and this pizza pie down here says Chinese on it, or short for Chinese. And here you see all these foreign countries, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? They're kind of carving up pieces of the pie, and everybody's taking a piece. And here's China in the background saying, wait a minute, you know. You can see it kind of looks goblin-y, right? That whole racism thing coming out. But basically, it's kind of like taking colonies in a country and having special rights and privileges there. So as we talked about it, China was a closed society, very closed. So these very powerful European countries could kind of go into China and push them around because China was very reserved. They were kind of cut off from the industrialization of the world. So here's a map of China, and you can see these different colors represent the different countries that kind of had what's called spheres of influence there. And again, these are areas where, let's say Japan, here you see one here and up here, where Japan would have an area in China where they would trade. They would have trading ports there, and that's how they would trade with China. Here's Britain, large spheres of influences here. And again, these were like areas where they would have special privileges, special rights, especially trading rights and stuff like that. Here's a Germany sphere of influence. Here's a French sphere. So you can see how they're kind of all cutting up China. Question for you is, oh, and Russia's up here too, right? Where's the U.S.? The United States of America didn't have a sphere of influence in China, and they didn't like that. So they wanted to change that. And here's where you see the United States starting something called the open door policy. The U.S. wanted, right? They basically said no country is allowed to have a monopoly on trade with China. And all these countries agreed. You know, why? It's something to look into. So I love this cartoon here because it shows each country represented by a different animal, right? Russia's the bear, England's the lion here, right? The United States of America is the eagle back here in the corner, kind of looking in. Here's Germany, right? Here's Austria. So here's Japan down here. So all of these animals are kind of fighting over the dragon, right? And the dragon's China. You see that. And look, as this guy's got a gun, this guy's got a sword, this guy's got the knife in his mouth, this guy's got the knife on his back. So it's very apparent here that they're willing to fight, or this might get violent. And here's the U.S. back here. We have nothing. But what America says is, listen, why don't we all share China? Instead of having spheres of influence, you have this and you have this and fighting over it, let's all share it. And they called it the open door. Let's open the door. We should all have an open door to China. So what's interesting is some Chinese people didn't like all these spheres of influences, and they were known as the Boxers. And these Boxers started something called the Boxer Rebellion. These Chinese citizens were angry. They thought that these spheres of influence were stealing their natural resources, and that they're taking Chinese wealth, and they had no respect for the customs and the culture of the Chinese. So what you see is a rebellion. And what's interesting about this picture is, here you see the Boxers over here, and the people fighting them, if you notice, they all have different uniforms on. Okay, you see these guys down here? So it was an international army fighting them back. Okay, again, here's the Boxers. You can see here, it's different types of countries all fighting against these Boxers. Why? Well, these countries all have those spheres of influence inside of China, and they want to keep those. So it was like an international army. I like this picture too, kind of spanking the bad Boxers, right? It was this international army, and these guys are running to join in too, right? That put down this rebellion and said, whoa, stop messing with us here. You know, this is a rebellion, We got to put this down because they're threatening our spheres of influence, our trading rights here. That's pretty much it for now. All right. If you haven't ever seen this movie, it's called The Last Samurai. It's really great. It might be rated R though. I'm not sure. There's a lot of violence in it. It's about basically demonstrating resistance to change. This is Tom Cruise, and the story goes that he's in Japan, and it's kind of like this new way of things is taking over, new military styles, lots of changes versus like the old traditional samurai way, and things are changing in Japan. So it's a really cool movie, some really cool fight scenes in that movie. But check it out with your parents first, make sure it's okay before you go see it. But that's all I have for now. Well, just to kind of review, we talked about the markets in Asia. We talked about those spheres of influence. You heard that funny story about how we brought battleships to force Japan to trade with us. And that's where we are, and that's what we're going to talk about in class tomorrow. All right, thanks for watching. We will see you in class.